Thank you very much for coming here. First of all, I would like to introduce Dr. Pakorn Sirupakop, our Dean of Faculty of Political Science, to give an opening remarks first. Please, Ajahn.
Okay, thank you so much, Tin Paul. Okay, hi, welcome to the Faculty of Political Science, and here we are at the 12th floor of the 60th anniversary building of our faculty. So this actually the conference room here belongs to our alumni association. Right. So it's one of the beautiful conference room that we have at the faculties. And welcome everyone. And here is my opening and welcoming remarks. Good morning everyone, and warm welcome to our seminar, The Victory of Thailand's Same-Sex Marriage, Happily Ever After. Today we gather to celebrate and reflect on what many consider a landmark achievement, the recognition of same-sex unions in Thailand, from members of the LGBTQ plus community, as well as allies and advocates worldwide. This signifies a remarkable step forward. However, the subtitle of our event, Happily Ever After, invites us to probe deeper. Legal victories, while holistic, historic, do not necessarily ensure an end to social challenges. They mark a new beginning, one that calls for dialogue, empathy, and sustained collective effort. Over the course of this seminar, we will explore remaining challenges such as some pending legal amendments and adjustment, socio-cultural dimension of the issues, as well as open opportunities for Thailand standing in the international community. Your presence here, whether as scholars, activists, policy experts, or community members, reflects a shared commitment to advancing equality. Together, let us celebrate this victory while remaining mindful that true inclusion demands continuous work and open conversations. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Friedrich Naumann Stiftung, or FNS, for its unwavering support of ISIS Thailand and our faculty in organizing this seminar that address topics of significant public interest. Again, thank you for joining us. I encourage you all to engage in today's sessions with an open mind and collaborative spirit. May this seminar not only highlight Thailand's achievement, but also galvanize further progress toward justice and acceptance for all. And you all, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you, Dr.
ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you for your time giving us the glimpse of what we are going to go through and address today. But before we begin, let me briefly introduce our speakers who will give us a food of thought in the marriage equality bills and its surrounding issues. So I probably begin with everyone should know him very well, Professor Withit Mantraporn, Emeritus Professor at the Faculty of Law, Chulalongkorn University. The second one, Kun Narirak Prachaipoom, Director, International Human Rights Divisions, Rights and Liberty Protection Department, Ministry of Justice. And next one, Mr. Chanatip Tattiya Karunwong, Regional Researcher at the Amnesty International. And the last one, Ms. Natini Titik Pinya Picha, founder of the Trans Talent Consulting Group. So welcome to ISIS Thailand public forums. Actually, a lot of people, when I was mentioning about this topic last time after our first, after we finished our seminar, so like, wow, ISIS Thailand, also deal with these kind of issues. I said like, yes, it is like, non-traditional security, human security issues, which in the missions of our institutes as well. So we're trying to broaden our discussion on these kind of social issues. And as you can see, right, we are joined today by a panel of distinguished speakers and experts, each bring a unique perspective, right, and experiences to share the thought on recent passage of the marriage equality bills, which officially came into effect just a few weeks ago. So as as the of the title of today's seminar suggests, there is undeniably a significant victory for the LGBTQ plus community and countless couple who have long awaited equal rights. However, while we celebrate this milestone, right, important questions remain, including legal challenges, transgender rights, discriminations. For example, probably you have seen on TV, on the news, a recent case involving death threat, sent to a newlywed LGBTQ couple who are both TV series actors, highlight the challenges that remains as well. So today, our goal is to explore this issue further, unpacking the layer of the achievement and opening new dimensions of thought and dialogue. So as today we are trying to unfold different layers, as usual, the format of the discussions will be divided into three parts. First, each panelist will have around like 10 plus minutes, to address the points of the discussions of their concerns. And then the second part will leave each panelist around 5 to 8 minutes, depends, to add more, dialogue to each other, in some issues. Probably you agree, you disagree, and probably you add some information if you want. And last, we'll open the Q&A sessions for around like 30 minutes. I would like to start with Professor Witit. As a legal scholar and human rights expert, could you share your thought and insight on this historic achievement? What does the passage of this bill signify politically and socially, for Thailand? And what steps should we take, further to advance the rights of the LGBTQ plus community further? Thank you.
Good morning. Sawasdee krab. First of all, let me invite us to applaud everybody who pushed for the same-sex marriage law. And happy Valentine's Day. Actually, I was here before ISIS was established. And I was here when ISIS was established. So it's a pleasure to be here many years later, maybe representing the group that was there then, who are not quite here today, but they are here in spirit with us. What I'd like to do is to be very practical. So I'm going to give you a 12-point marital jigsaw in a very practical manner, because there are questions to be answered. And I will try to answer them in 12 questions and answers. Number one, what was the law reform in Thailand last year on this matter, taking effect very recently in January? The law reform was the reform of the civil code. So it's a structural reform. It's not a special statutory law, parliament, by itself, but it reforms about 60, 70 provisions of the old civil code. And this is thus different from the Taiwan experience or the Nepal experience. It's a very structural reform. And what it does is it amends the provisions that use binary wording, such as husband and wife, man and woman, or male, female, fiancé, E and two E's or whatever, and replaces all those by non-binary terms, such as persons, spouses, and engaged couples. And basically, a very key article which was reformed was 1448, and that's the one which used to say man and woman can marry if 70 and up. But now it's any persons. And some people translate it as individuals, but actually bukkon is persons, I think, whereas individual would be patek chon, which is different from the wording. And importantly, the reform raises the age of marriage and engagement to 18. And that is the flow-on effect of the recommendation from the CEDAW committee, the Women's Committee, about 20 years ago. So you can see this connectivity with international standards through women's rights as well. Secondly, can foreigners register same-sex marriage in Thailand? The answer is yes, but with conditions. You need a certificate stating that each is not married, and you need a stamp from your embassy here, and then translate it into Thai with another stamp in terms of attestation. And when you go to the district office to register, you need 2 witnesses. It can be your relatives, and you need an interpreter. So it's more than just marriage. There are conditions to be fulfilled. And you can get your piece of paper, this one, from the district office in terms of specifications. Thirdly, can Thais who registered their marriage abroad re-register their marriage again, that is, in Thailand? It's very important. The answer is no. But they should obtain a form from the district office that attests, that proves that they have a family relationship. It's a family relationship form, which is equivalent to a sort of implied recognition of the foreign marriage as registered. And this will help to ensure that the marriage abroad will have some legal effect. And what you have to produce ultimately when you have judicial and other proceedings is this form which says you prove that you have a family relationship. And I think that might be complicated for some people who have done the double, so to speak. And one day, with digitalization, it may be revealed. Fourthly, can same-sex spouses adopt? The answer is yes. The adopted child then falls under the general adoption law, which has specifications. The general adoption law, for example, says that there must be a gap of 15 years between the adopter and the adoptee, for example. And Taiwan, which is the first country in Asia to have the law on same-sex marriage, is still undergoing a problem on adoptions. Fifth, how many laws in Thailand need to be amended to delete the binary wording to ensure that any persons will benefit on an equal basis from the various laws? You'll hear more about this from my dear friends, about 50 to 60 other laws, with labor law included, nationality law, and so on, with the binary wording. But I think it's also interesting, I want to hear this, some of the laws that should be reformed in terms of getting rid of the binary wording also might use the word kusomrod, which is spouse. Now, does that mean we should interpret these laws in a broad sense without waiting for amendment even? Because, 50 laws to be amended individually, difficult, gradually. So let's be broad-minded there in terms of functionality. 6, from the LGBTI plus angle, what might be the most important law next to amend? I think very high up the list, out of the 50 or 60, is the 2015 surrogacy law, which needs to be amended because that is based upon surrogacy between husband and wife, male, female. But only in intra-family situation. You cannot have commercial surrogacy in Thailand under this law. It's only between members of the family, but not the parents and the children. So, for example, X and Y might ask the sister to carry the fetus. And basically, you have 3 situations under the current law where surrogacy is permitted. Egg of wife and sperm of husband, currently. So you insert the embryo in the womb of the sister, for example. Egg of the wife and donor sperm, or donor egg and husband's sperm, but not the egg of the surrogate. Forbidden. The current situation is that the various ministries are trying to reform the law to ensure that the binary stuff is deleted. And they're also exploring how to enable foreigners to come to Thailand to benefit from this, because previously foreigners came. It is unsettled at this point in time, but I would just enter a caveat that some countries forbid surrogacy. And so there might be some who wish to come here to, to use the commercial surrogacy, etc. So there might be complications when they go back to the country of origin when it's prohibited in terms of surrogacy. And of course, there are clandestine situations that we know about. But let's bear in mind that the best interest of the child ultimately should prevail. So that has to be a careful annotation. 7th, what about the question of gender identity? And this is very much pertinent. I've been advocating for a long time. I used to track this for the United Nations, and it was always there in my reports. We need a gender identity law here, even though we have wonderful friends who are transgender and also good operations, medical and so on, but they can't change their documents. Well, we need gender identity law to recognize their affirmation of their preferred gender, bearing in mind that gender is different from biological sex, whatever a certain president may say elsewhere from here. But in this country, we're still open. And there are various draft laws that have been pending for a long time, and 3 or 4 drafts in Parliament now. Most of them, I think, now agree that you don't need to have a medical operation. You just stipulate what you are. But they're still unsettled on whether you need psychological certification. And even in Europe, it wasn't clear. The European Court of Human Rights decision many years ago, which recognized gender identity on the basis of no coercive medical operation, did not settle then the psychological situation. And countries vary. So it's a bit unclear at the moment, even in the drafts, as to whether you need psychological test as well as certification from a psychologist. I disagree. I follow the Argentina model and the Malta model, very open. You should not need medical unless you want it, operation, and you should not need certification from a psychiatrist. And anyway, it's your life, it's your personal, private life. It's not anybody else's business. So let it be and recognize who we are, different from the biological sex. 8th, what about the title of the person? And we're very hierarchical in Thailand. You know, we have real Mr., Miss, Mrs., etc., and many gradations upwards. We have different hierarchies of language, much more than the English language. I think the easiest, and this comes from the stipulations from NGOs and other experts from the Jakarta principles, which are a summary of preferred options in terms of principles on LGBTI. The easiest is, even without law reform, avoid titles. And some universities, at least one, has given certificates, graduation, without the title Mr. Just put the name there. But in the current drafts of various laws, there has been proposed a different sort of title, which is Naam. You know, it's a name rather than Mr. or Mrs. But whether that gets through, and culturally whether it's acceptable, is something we have to look at for the future. And then be careful also with the box and the gender markers and so on. Of course, in many countries now, if we need gender markers, we have 3 boxes, you know, male, female, and others. And some people are still thinking we should have a 3rd box or 3rd gender. Over here, I don't think we need that sort of classification because it might be discriminatory. At most, you might need a box which says other or not mentioned. And even that's being questioned now in a big country with a new presidency. Basically, the details of what you are should not be revealed unless it's really for imperative necessity, such as health or demographic and so on. And this is very much back to the personal data protection, ranging from European data protection regulation to the current PDPA, or personal data protection law in Thailand, which should be open to that non-binary approach ultimately. 9th, are other countries obliged to recognize same-sex marriages registered in Thailand? The other is no. Because you have to check the laws of these other countries. Some countries have specific, particularly common law countries, have specific laws on recognition of foreign marriages. But you can't compel others to recognize what's been registered here. And even if you register as a couple here, be careful when you go to these 60 countries that criminalize same-sex relations. It's just next door. And if you go and declare that your spouse is same sex and sleep in the same bed and so on, you might have a problem over there. You might be criminalized and get into a lot of problems. So be careful there. And the only international treaty on this is the Hague Convention on Celebration and Recognition of the Validity of Marriages of 1978. And there are only 3 states which are parties, none of which are Asian, to facilitate recognition of foreign marriages. So only 3 countries are Australia, Luxembourg, and Netherlands. Definitely not enough to get consensus internationally to recognize what could be happening here. 10th, how to deal with not so nice reaction to same-sex marriages, such as the hate speech that you just heard about. Well, there are many ways of dealing with. I think from a human rights angle, we follow the stipulations of the international standards on this, which is basically the treaty-based approach, or the Covenant on Civil Rights. And basically, you need a law, particularly criminal law, against what we call incitement to hatred, which might lead to discrimination or violence. In other words, A calls upon B to attack C. All right, it's a triangular relationship. So it's quite high in terms of threshold, rather than prohibiting you from hating me. But you can't do that anyway. I mean, there are many ways of doing it. So a multidisciplinary approach is very important, including education, including peer pressure for openness and tolerance. And on this front, because you still have areas of Thailand where the new law does not apply, particularly in southern Thailand, where Islamic law prevails. So be careful there. We need some dialogue with religious leaders also in terms of tolerance. And the UN has guidelines on religious leaders and other leaders in terms of tolerance against advocacy of what might be atrocities and related crimes. 11th, what about gender-neutral facilities, including here, just to get away from all the discrimination in terms of various facilities. You can start without waiting for a new law. You could just convert your toilets into non-gender type of toilets and train people accordingly. There are many models on this. Argentina, the universities flipped and they were all converted and into gender-neutral facilities. We need examples. Even the UN is very slow on this. And if it's going to be cabins where you have sit-downs, you have to train particularly those who stand up to pee to lift the lid. So it's a cultural phenomenon. There's still people who pee over here, sadly, without lifting the lid, unfortunately. So there is a possibility of cultural change also. And then finally, how to sustain a marriage in the long term, which is the next question after all this, you know, the happily ever after. Well, I mean, you just learn from the loving couples, whoever they are, learn from history in terms of the wisdom of being together as sustained couples who care for each other, who understand each other, who have compassion, who share activities, and who regenerate the relationship all the time, have an exciting, loving time all the time, with or without sex. And we need to track this in the long term. We had a very good conference with the French here last year, which tracked what happens in France in the long term in terms of empirical statistics of whether marriages break up, in terms of same sex, who is the person who causes it, if at all, is it domestic violence and what reason and so on. Over here in Thailand, a lot of the domestic violence is due to alcohol, actually. So that needs to be there in terms of the empirical statistical data collection and analysis, as well as mitigation measures for the future, including, you know, how to settle differences in a friendly manner. So the bottom line, well, those are 12 points of the jigsaw puzzle, and it's not 12 difficult points, and we can start with ourselves and nurture, respect, loving couples, irrespective of gender, who enrich society as a whole, here, there, and anywhere. And let's congratulate them for lifting our spirits wholeheartedly and warm-heartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Witit. You touched upon a wide range of issues that we are going to delve into deeply further. So especially when you were talking about this issue, probably a lot of people think it's like a small issue, right? A toilet, like a binary toilet, and then actually research support this unisex toilet that is more efficient, more effective, and fair for all genders, and then that probably female don't have to, or a female figure don't have to wait for too long to get into the toilet. So that's probably a small issue, but if you raise awareness of this kind of a social issue, perhaps we could create more fairness in our society. So next speaker is Kun Narirak. From government perspective, you've been working for quite some time on this issue. So yes.
Just to let you know that our renovation project will consist of the all sex, all gender bathroom in our new building. Yeah.
Start for education institutions, to enforce this kind of fairness. But anyway, yes, from government perspective, you have been working on this issue for quite some time. Do you still see like any legal hurdle or any obstacle for implementation? So what the government actually, what's their perspective on this issue? All the obstacles and remaining legal and practices, dimensions that Ajahn Vitit was mentioning still remains. How do you see this through the government function, or how to reorganize the whole structures of this?
Thank you so much. And first of all, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And thank you so much for ISIS, Faculty of Political Science of Chulalongkorn University, and also Friedrich Naumann Foundation for inviting me to be part of this panel and also join the panel with my beloved professor and our good friends. So very happy to be here. So I will speak on behalf of the government as because I'm the representative of Ministry of Justice who actually responsible on the Marriage Equality Bill Act. And I would like to bring you all back like 12 years ago when we first start on this issue, when there was a gay couple try to register marriage in Chiang Mai district office, but they were refused. So they brought the case to the attention of the Parliamentary Committee on Human Rights. And then that is why Ministry of Justice by our department was joined in the starting to discuss about how to address the problem. And at that time, when it is kind of the new, not the new issue, but it's the remaining issue, but it's new for many people. So we have to study the situation in other country as well and development in other country. And we found that in many countries, it starts from civil partnership and then improving step by step to marriage equality at the end. So at first, Ministry of Justice, we set our strategy as to start by civil partnership bill, and then our ultimate goal is the marriage equality. And then we try to develop the law in that direction. But when we first discussed on this issue, it was very challenging because at that time, 12 years ago, not many people are open-minded like present. And when we have of course, when we develop the law, we have to conduct the regional consultation in every part of the country. And then when I went to the South, this is the example that I always give to everyone. Like I will just go on the stage saying that "Sawasdee ka," and then some people just stand up and then say to me, "Get out," something like this. So it was very shock at that time. But nowadays, when we went to the South, we received more welcoming from them, but not all anyway. But still, some of the bias and some of the conflict of their religion belief is still remains. So, but anyway, it's more acceptable at the moment. So during when we work on this law, and I think in fact we see that along the journey we face a lot of challenges. But still, but on the other hand, we also see a lot of development as well, especially during the past 5 years when the idea of marriage equality was arising in the country. In the past, nobody against the civil partnership bill, and everyone was agreed to have a civil partnership bill. But I think from 6 to 5 years ago when we have the idea of marriage equality was in what was kind of disseminated. So people are, and I think the young generation is also grown up. So they request, they echo their voice to government to go for marriage equality. And it was actually in our mind as well. Our team in Ministry of Justice, we want to go for marriage equality, but it is quite difficult because we have to follow the policy of the government at that time. And at that time, it's still we have to go for civil partnership to marriage equality, like step-by-step approach. But when we got the green light from the previous government, from former Prime Minister Sethar Thavisin, we can suddenly change our direction from civil partnership bill to marriage equality. And with the strong political will, it was very easy and also very helpful for us as a government officer to push forward this agenda. And it was finally approved by the parliament in the 18th of June last year. And of course, it's come to this the adoption and enactment of the marriage equality law. And on the screen, you will see that before we have this is just to show you the picture on when people are marching against the civil partnership bill and they echo their voice for marriage equality. I would like to highlight here that the success of this bill was actually from the voice of the people, from the civil society and people in the country, because without them, it is also not easy for us to push forward this agenda, because they echo their voice and also they involved in so many activities and try to send a strong message to the government. So that is why we can also change from civil partnership bill to marriage equality. For the details of Marriage Equality Act, my professor has already informed everyone, but one of the highlight that I would like to add more is that we amend the minimum age of marriage from 17 to 18 as well. And we try to use gender neutral term. And one of the highlight in this law is that the law has one of the provision section mentioned that the law will be applied automatically to the spouse if that law provides the same level of rights to to the spouse, so this can also apply automatically. But if the law provide different level of rights to spouse, that the law needs to be amended within 180 days after the law enter into force. And now good news is that we just have a meeting with the other relevant ministries last month, just before the law entered into force on 23rd. And then we found that 90% of, I would say 99% of relevant ministry said that they are ready to apply the law and they don't have to amend the law. Only some of the law that need to be amended, like my professor already said about the surrogacy, about the nationality, and some regulation related to the social welfare and revenue code that need to be amended. But the other law, the line ministry said that they are ready to serve and to prepare for the ensure the rights of the spouse, same-sex spouse, and they would like to also ensure the equal rights for all. But on the 23rd of the January, the law was entered into force, and recently there are quite more than 3,000 couple has already registered marriage. But it was very interesting that most of the same-sex spouse are female and female, yeah. But female and female, I think almost 2,000 couple. But for male and male, less than 1,000 couple. So this was very interesting, and I think we need more study on this. The reason behind that why women are registered more than male couple. And the current one, now the line ministry is already working on the amendment of the relevant laws, and of course within 180 days they have to report back to the cabinet on the result of the amendment, or if it's not possible for them to do so, they have to also report to the cabinet on the reason that why they cannot do that. And on the next bill that are on the line is Of course, the first one is the draft anti-discrimination bill. This is also responsible by Ministry of Justice. It's the central law to cover and protect the anti-discrimination, regardless of any differences. So the law has already proposed to the cabinet and waiting for the cabinet to push into the agenda. So this law is just on the way and waiting for the cabinet for approval. But the next one, which is under the consultation, is the draft gender recognition bill, which is also this is the law that to recognize the gender. And this is still under discussion because there are several ways that they still cannot come to the agreement on what kind of criteria to be what criteria is appropriate to change the title in the ID card or the official documents. There are also three alternative ways that are discussing at the moment. The first one is to focus on the self-determination principle. So if you prefer to be a male or female, you can just go to the district office and change. And the second one is to name another title, like we have Miss, Mr., and then maybe Mr. X, something like this. This is another second way. And the other third way is that to allow these rights only for the trans who already gone the medical operation. So this is three ways that they are discussing at the moment. This bill is responsible by Ministry of Social Development and Human Security, but it is still under discussion. And I think they have conduct a lot of public consultation, but still cannot have the consensus on the criteria and on the details of the law. So last slide, I would like to highlight on the challenges along the way that we are working on this bill for about 12 or 13 years, when we try to push forward this bill not only for the drafting but also for the implementation. The first challenge is the bias and lack of awareness and understanding on the LGBTIQ, because even though Thailand seems to be a paradise for the LGBT people, but actually the bias and not understanding is still remain, and some people are still not acceptable of the LGBTIQ people. You can see from the website or comments in the online media as well, and also on the street. Sometimes you can see that some people still have bias and not accept the same-sex couple working in the street. Some people, but majority of Thai people are very open-minded and very friendly to the LGBTI, but still this remain. Second one is that Thailand, as a government officer, we don't have official statistic on the number of LGBTIQ in Thailand. The official statistic that we have is only the military conscription, when we know that who is the trans, who is the men who gone for military conscription. But we don't have the official statistic of LGBTIQ people in Thailand, because by nature of LGBTIQ, not everyone is willing to express themselves. So we have to understand on this point as well. But this is very difficult for us when we want to propose policy or law that related to the budget, because the accountant, they love to calculate, budget per head, and then usually ask how many people, how many LGBT, how many money that they will be earned, or how many they will be lost. So they need to know the head of the number of the LGBTIQ. This is one of the challenge for us to propose the law or policy. The third one is the conflict with the religion belief, because when we work on the marriage equality, of course we have a consultation with the religion leader. Christian, Buddhist, and Islamic. And for Buddhists, there is no problem at all. For the Christian and for the Islamic, they said it is acceptable no matter what you want to choose to be L, to be G, to be T, be I, be Q. That is absolutely fine for when it's go for choosing for your gender identity. That is fine. But when it comes to the family relationship or the setting up of the form of family, it will be against the religion belief especially for Christian and Islamic, because they believe that the family need to be formed to deliver baby. Something like that. So if you form a family and you cannot deliver baby, this is against the religion principle. And they ask me, how can they teach their their kids after this law as well? So this is quite against their belief. And then the fourth one is the challenge. Fourth challenge is the differences different needs between different group. Because when we work on this issue, everyone want us to pick up the issue to be a priority issue for the government. Like for example, the G maybe want to form a family, L maybe they want to adopt a baby, and trans maybe they want to change the gender identity. So everyone want us to pick up their issue to be a priority. So it is the government to choose what should be done first and then what next, something like that. So this is very challenging in terms of balancing the needs from different groups. The fifth is the changing of the situation is also challenges, because but this is challenges in a good way, because in the past not many people supporting the relationship between same-sex couple, but recently they are more open. So this when the situation change, it can be changed in a good way as well. So when it change, people are more accept, and then they echo their voice to that they want marriage equality. That could be very helpful for us. And the last one, I think the challenge is the political instability or political will is very important for us, because when in the past, I will share my experience when I explain about marriage equality or even civil partnership in the parliament, many people are laughing at us. Like in the politicians are also laughing at us, not even listen to us, not even listen to what they want or what we are explaining. They are just laughing without listening. So, but when we have a strong political will and political will that are willing to help or willing to issue this law, the situation is totally different. Because as I mentioned in the past, they are laughing at us when we are discussing, and they're afraid of us to inspire their kids to become LGBT, something like that. But when we have the good political will and the strong political will, that could be very helpful as well. So this is from my experience, and thank you very much. ขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณครับคุณนริรัตน์ so many issues that actually connected to the last two speakers, especially discriminations and gender recognitions, that probably two of the speaker could elaborate more. And next probably Kun Chanatip, as the human rights advocate, I understand that you have been investigating this kind of discriminations for quite some time among LGBTQ communities. So how do you see this situation? Is it like a paradox of what Gunarirat said? Actually, the Thai society is quite open, but at the same time, there are a lot of discriminations and explicit and implicit biases in the societies. Could you elaborate more? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ajahn Pongpisut, and thank you to the organizers for having me today. I think I'd like to start my talk today with a discussion around this discrepancy between people's perception about Thailand in terms of LGBTI rights and the reality on the ground. So as Kun Narilak already mentioned rightly, a lot of times Thailand is often perceived as this paradise for LGBTIQ plus rights, a great place for queer people to be. On the slide, I put up this slogan from the Tourism Authority of Thailand that says, "Go Thai, be free." But are we really free here in Thailand as LGBTIQ plus people? Of course, we have made amazing strides with the recent passing of the marriage equality law, and Amnesty ourselves are also praised the Thai government for making this amazing step. But at the same time, this marriage equality law is just one issue among many ongoing discriminations and violence that is happening against LGBTIQ people plus people in Thailand. So Today, I'd like to be focusing on issues around online harassment and digital violence that still happens to LGBTIQ people. And I'd like to talk specifically about activists, people who have been speaking out, advocating for LGBTIQ rights, but facing backlashes because of their activism. So, over the past 4 to 5 years, as all of you may know, the protest movement that emerged back in 2020 was largely led by women and LGBTIQ people. And here's a quote from one of the young activists. She said, "We saw a prominent rise of women and LGBTI people in protest because we understand all too well what it means to be oppressed, not just from the government's restrictions on our expression, but also from the society's gender norms." And over the past 2 years, I've had a chance to work on this project to study what kind of challenges LGBTIQ activists are experiencing when they come out to protest or to express themselves, to advocate for their rights. And we put out this research, which you can check out from the QR code on the slide last year. And here's another quote from an activist that I think illustrates the point really well. They are a non-binary activist, and they said, digital technology is really important for activism, but at the moment, it's not a safe space for LGBTI people and women at all. And here are the three key research findings that we kind of summarized from last year's research, which I'd like to go through briefly, and then I'll go into the recent observations that we found after we put out this research. So first, we saw that LGBTIQ people who engaged in human rights activism are not safe online because of these types of digital violence, and I'll go into the types later on. Second, we're seeing that once they experience digital violence, they're also not able to access effective remedy. And third, we're seeing that digital violence is leading to a chilling effect that's discouraging them from further carrying out their activism, from speaking out, advocating for their rights. So the two types of digital violence that we found included targeted digital surveillance and online harassment. We found that many of the LGBTIQ activists, once they came out, they got hacked in their online accounts, social media accounts. For example, many of them received alerts from Facebook saying that their accounts have been compromised. And many people might think, oh, that has nothing to do with their gender or sexuality. It's more about their activism, their political leanings. But actually, the impact that it has on them is very much intertwined with pre-existing violence and discrimination against LGBTIQ people. So for example, one of the gay activists who got attacked in this manner told me, "Going into prison is my worst nightmare, because for gay men and trans women, the prison can be brutal, as you will likely be sexually harassed or assaulted and face discrimination." And he was saying this because, as you all know, in Thailand, any piece of evidence that shows your involvement in the protest movement can land you in jail. So if any kind of evidence was obtained through the hacking could show that he was involved in a protest movement, he could end up in jail and face these types of discrimination. So the fear regarding the breach of privacy is very much linked to gender-based violence here. And we also see, on top of targeted surveillance, different types of online harassment, such as hateful speech, doxing, targeted smear campaigns, threats of violence. We do have a little bit more details and testimonies in our report, but I'm not going to go into them today because of the time limits. But I'd like to highlight that after the activists experienced these types of digital violence, many of them suffered from severe mental health impact: stress, paranoia, burnout, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and it led many of them to stop their activism or to self-censor, to limit their expression. And this ties to what Kunarilak was talking about earlier as well. In the deep south of Thailand, we see particularly severe impact because of the influence of religious communities that are more conservative compared to other regions of the country. Many LGBTI activists in the region told us that they don't even dare using social media platforms to talk about their identity or even to advocate for, let's say, same-sex marriage or other types of legal protection for them because it's too dangerous and they can be chased down to their village if they post anything like that. Also, whenever these activists try to access justice, we found that there's a deep lack of gender sensitivity in the way police officers handled the cases. Oftentimes, digital violence is not taken seriously. It's often seen as something that's not very severe, not as severe as physical violence. So a lot of times, complaints are not even registered. And we also see limits of the law. Right now, Thailand has the Gender Equality Act, which came to force back in 2015. But according to this law, Article 17 says gender-based discrimination could still be exempted on the basis of religion or national security. So if people are being attacked online because of reasons related to these grounds, they may not file complaints under this law in terms of the gender-based discrimination that they're facing. And just to come to the present, after I put out this research for a year, we continue to monitor the situation and we still see continuous online harassment against LGBTI activists. As Dr. Pongpisut already mentioned in the beginning, even couples who post about their marriage are facing attacks from people who hate LGBTI people. And we still see a surge of attack against especially activists, trans and non-binary activists who advocate for legal gender recognition. We see emerging discourses that these people advocating for more rights are greedy, asking for too much, deceptive, trying to lure people to have misunderstandings, quote unquote, about their gender identity. So online attacks are still ongoing and hateful speech are still widespread, but we're just not seeing it being reported because of this widespread perception that Thailand is doing amazing on LGBTQI rights with the recent passing of the same-sex marriage law. And on the last point is that we're seeing impacts of the recent geopolitical shift following the Trump's administration's freeze of AIDS and rollback on protection of LGBTIQ people in the US. It's happening in the US, but it's having great impacts around the world, including in Thailand. Regarding the freezing of aid, we're seeing that LGBTQ plus rights organizations are struggling to work because of the lack of resources impacted by this recent happening. And that has great impacts on the civic space related to LGBTI people. And regarding the protection of the rollback on protection of LGBTQ people, particularly trans people in the US, it's sparking very similar reactions, hatred against transgender and non-binary people in Thailand as well. I usually regularly monitor these news, and you can see in the comment section that there are so many transphobic, anti-non-binary comments in Thai news related to this issue that you could see regularly, and nothing is being done about it. So to my conclusion, the passage and enforcement of the marriage equality law is an amazing step, but it's just the beginning towards ensuring full protection of LGBTI rights. And we'll continue to see more activism by LGBTI people because we still don't have full legal protection here. We still need legal gender recognition. We still need anti-discrimination law. We still need many, many measures to protect LGBTI people in vulnerable communities, such as the Deep South. So we'll see more people coming out, speaking out, expressing themselves, advocating for their rights. But at the same time, that means we'll still see these backlashes again and again. We'll see different types of digital violence being directed against the LGBTI people who come out to advocate for their rights. So I'd encourage any relevant stakeholders who's watching or who might be following this to continue to advocate for Thai authorities to take more measures, immediate measures, to address and fight digital violence against LGBTI activists and ensure that they can carry out their activism safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunjana, too. Yes, as you ended, your presentation with the gender recognitions, and then it's perfectly fit with the Kuniki experience and expertise as a transgender right advocate and social entrepreneur. Your perspectives will be quite insightful in terms of how you see these marriage equality bills, expand the rights, to include transgender communities, and what kind of discriminations that you still found, in your daily life and your work, with your own companies and all the communities involved in this one. And then should it be the priority of the Thai government to amend the law to recognize this, as Kunna Rilat was saying, that a bunch of, law that needs to be amended, and then should this be the first one to expand our rights? Thank you.
Hello. All right. So, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Before I address that very challenging question, so let me reflect a little bit of what I have heard from these, amazing three speakers. So, we have seen and how so much of the love and passion and contributions to address that systemic barriers in terms of legal and social perspective. And that reminds me when I was studying not here in political science, I studied in the Faculty of Arts, humanity, that what we study. So it reminds me about something that have been really raised about love. Marriage equality campaign has been very well perceived by the society with the hashtag love wins. I think this is a very key word of what I want to highlight today as well. So, but when it comes to that love, we represent by any color, like this lady representing a pink color, some of us representing black color, and that will remind me to one of the novel that I have read when I study here. I heard that they said that true love is not red, but as black as onyx, like the color of the throat of Lord Shiva, the Hindi god, after he drank the poison to save the world from destruction. True love must endure the poison of life and be willing to taste the deepest bitterness, satisfying oneself on that those we love may continue to live. And because of this ultimate bitterness, love chose the color of onyx, the pain and the struggle, over any other color that merely seeks pleasure and joy. So I would like all of you to give an applause to these, amazing three speakers who really give their love and contribution and passion on this perspective. So for now, let me bring you to another perspective that I think also relevant and should be correlated to what the previous speaker has been mentioned. We talk a lot about, social and legal perspective. Let me bring you to the economy perspective. This is my field of passion and purpose. Being born and raised in Thailand as a transgender people, not by rest of shore. I mean, being a transgender in Thai society, born under the very low socioeconomic status of the family. So, of course, I face a lot of challenges, discrimination in terms of opportunity based on my gender identity rather than the competencies. I represent one of the 77% of the Thai transgender people who got job application rejection, not because of their competencies, but because of their gender identity. This is the statistical survey by the World Bank in 2018. So if we talk about my lived experience, 1 hour is not enough for sure, but let me give you a little bit of why I jumped my career path from social advocacy to economic advocacy, because I think when being a transgender with a very limited opportunity in terms of career, choice of life, the freedom of of economic activities. So it's very difficult for me to thrive professionally and of course personally as well. So I think that's the reason why I want to make sure that not only we have the legal protection for our existence, but also we need to make sure that we have a freedom of choice and a freedom of growth as well. So when you have that financial independence, when you have a wealth condition of your own life, and that's how we can have that freedom of living, to be honest. So that's why I founded Trans Talents Consulting Group. This social enterprise I envision to become a consultancy or a policy advisor for the corporate and the government sector on how to embed the diversity, equity, inclusion, or DEI as the foundation, not the fashion of what they are doing, to bring back the social economic justice and empowerment to the society and to the marginalized community. So one of the projects that I have been just complete advice to the government for now is the World Pride Feasibility Study Project. So have you heard about World Pride project? So I will tell about that project later on. But what I foresee is that from this topic about marriage equality, so to me, I think marriage equality is not just about the rights or social responsibility or bring back the social justice, but it's about the economic opportunity, but not for the big corporation or big investor. But that economic opportunity or wealth should redirect or invest back to the marginalized community that are limited their economic prosperity for a long time. So you can see on that statistic on the screen. It's very easy to find, to Google it. So we can see a lot of global mobility, global travel, global tourism on how this LGBTQ market in terms of tourism has been growing as a big market where a lot of business opportunity are trying to capture this market. But this is what I see. So comparing to that, business opportunity, some of the speakers also mentioned that we are lacking of the statistical data, collection and analysis of how marriage equality should prove as the economic booster of the country that recognize the same-sex or marriage equality. So I give you some example of this economic impact of the marriage equality 1 year in the US. So the William Institution has been, collect this data, and they also made sure that yes, marriage equality brought a massive GDP and economic growth to the country and created job. It also built the job creation and build economic prosperity to the country too. And of course, if you are one of the business like insurance, a financial institution, or whatever, wedding planner or tourism suppliers that really serve that magic economic activity of this marriage equality law, so you should get benefit out of that for sure. But the question is how that marriage equality or LGBTQ inclusion, either from legal perspective or economic inclusion perspective, could really bring the wealth to the cities that have more LGBTQ inclusion index. So this is the research from Open for Business, our partner that we work on that LGBTQ economic exclusion costs. They also have the research data on how LGBTQ inclusion city have a higher score and higher prosperity in terms of economy through the cities. So you can see these top three world most LGBTQ inclusive and innovative cities in 2022: London, Boston, Amsterdam. These three megacities, like metropolitans, have been proof that when you have that LGBTQ inclusion in the city or country, the shift of the economic prosperity of the city and the country has been, maximized through that benefit. And come back to Thailand. So what I can see from the after marriage equality milestone, I would also see that marriage equality is it's just a beginning. It's not a finish line of how we can really say the country is really inclusive and LGBTQ, inclusion or acceptance. So my company got hired by, the government agency to work on this project. This is a vision by the former Prime Minister Sethar Thavisin. He launched the strategic vision for Thailand to bid for a host at World Pride in 2030. So what is about World Pride? World Pride is an international pride event celebration, and it is a licensing event owned by the Interpride. What is Interpride organization? Interpride is an international association of pride organizers. So World Pride is about, a lot of things happening there. Apart from that, components that we can see, a parade, events and festive, human rights conference, arts and culture, sports, or whatever. But again, what I'm trying to highlight is that World Pride is not just an event celebration, but we are going to be part of the historic movement of the social, economic justice and transformation across the world. So this World Pride event doesn't only bring back, the tourism opportunity to the country, but also what it can bring. Let's see. I gave you some example of the previous World Pride city hosts, Sydney in Australia. So the positive impact or legacy that World Pride events has, given to the host city is, for example, in Sydney, they have a legal reform, after they host the Human Rights Conference on how they can make more, global network and driving another, legal protection for the LGBTQ people, and not only for the country, but also for the region and also in the global perspective. And of course, the economic impact. They bring a lot of, $1,000 million back to the country. And for the social perspective, it brings a lot of, creating the safe space for LGBTQ people. They have the first LGBTQ or Pride National Museum or Pride Center, and not only in the Sydney itself, but also in different parts of Australia as well. They have the space, a freedom of space for creating, a new the contemporary or the history, culture, and arts and whatever, and that we call the heritage of the country itself. And then apart from that, having legal, economic, and social impact back to the city. The city itself had also used or leveraged this, World Pride event to do the urban regeneration. So the city has been, the city infrastructures has become, a new way of, the city transformation as well. They have done the smart city. They embedded the technological and the perspective technology, innovation solution to build up the city to become more inclusive, not only by word, but also by infrastructures, by investments, and also by the supporting in terms of funding to the local LGBTQ artists. They highlight the First Nation, which is, the heritage, the culture of the people of that land. And also they got, the international recognition, they boost the local economy through that World Pride event. So you can see a lot of, different impact and legacy that one event could really get back to the country. So come back to what my recommendation for the strategic vision for Thailand to bid for the host in World Pride. What we recommend as part of the community, as part of the people who work in like cross-sectoral dimension. So I work not only with the community, but I also work with the public and private sector. So we do a lot of hearing, because when we do a lot of public policy, economic strategy or visions, or even when you are in the business, in the company, so you need to listen to your employees to see what they are feeling and what they would like to see for the change, right? So we do a lot of hearing from the Pride community, like LGBTQ communities, locally, regionally, and globally as well. And then we find out that yes, to make Thailand to become a regional hub for the global connectivity, first of all, we need to really understand, to highlight, and to empower the indigenous identity. Oftentimes, when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, we talk about LGBTQ movement. I think this part of the region, like in Asia, we borrow a lot of Western concept on defining who we are and diversity inclusion initiative. But so what we recommend is how to make this indigenous identity by setting up or establishing the gender school of thought, by building up the national and the global pride, intangible heritage. I think this is how the way we understand the local indigenous identity and the context, and make sure that we have different ethnicities and those who are oftentimes forgotten and hidden from the national agenda. They should be part of this one. So this is what the first strategy pillar that we recommend either the government or the private sector or the pride community to know and to be aware that we need to highlight on this one first. Apart from the identity, I think the second one, we need to ensure that we empower competencies. I think competencies is not just about invest or giving donation to the Pride Month. The corporate sponsorship is not enough for sure. I think the way Thailand should do, we should build the talent hub for Pride community. We have a lot of, LGBTQ talents, like cabaret show performers. We have drag shows. We have whatever, like series-wise, series, entertainment, or whatever, all of these, that could be our soft power to drive this national and global agenda together. So if we build a talent hub, so we make sure that all the benefits, not, again, come to the big pocket of the investor or just big corporation, but come back to the community that are always, forgotten and are limited the opportunity to become and to work in that formal sectors. Oftentimes, as a transgender people, we are limited the opportunity to work in all the beauty, media, entertainment, and sex industry. But what if we can see the transgender people who can become a CEO of the big corporation? We can see LGBTQ people have their own business that really drive the change as a talent hub of the region. So this is how we call the rainbow economy of Asia. Not by having the tourism, not by having medical hub only. We need to build that talent, okay? So that really align with the strategy, a national human capital strategy of Thailand as well. So, and that's how we can become the first rainbow tiger of Asia. So I think this is how we can do on the second strategic pillar. And the last one, yes, being the leader of this region is not enough. We also need to make sure that we are part of the global movement by connecting to what are happening around the world. either executive orders by the current U.S. Presidency is really affect to our LGBTQ communities locally as well. So how we can become a regional a policy reform platform, and then how we can, of course, making sure that what we invest for World Pride really turn back to make sure that we are a global inclusive destination, not by just having only campaign, a fantasy campaign like Go Thai Be Free by the Tourism Authority of Thailand, without having that bringing back the benefit back to the LGBTQ community. So this is what the strategic vision we recommend for Thai government to make sure that yes, you are not only the one who invests in this strategic movements locally, regionally, but also globally. But we need to make sure that we engage all the three P stakeholders that consist of pride, private, and public sector. So I think how to make sure that World Pride vision has been implemented effectively. So first of all, I think we need to build the equality ecosystem beyond the marriage equality. As all of these speakers mentioned, what we can build beyond the marriage equality. We need an ecosystem, a system that different part of work has come together, collaborate, and bringing back what are the right thing to do. We have 5 recommendations. So first of all, as again, I want to repeat, the data-driven policy legal protection. We don't have the number of these LGBTQ demographic of the country. We don't know where they are, what they do, how their living condition has become when this Marriage Equality or Gender Equality Act that has been implemented in 2015 already, I think more than almost 10 years already, 5 or 6 years already. So what are the impact of that legal reform and that make change to these people's life? And of course, another legal protection that's lining up, like legal gender recognition, non-discrimination in employment or whatever, sex work, decriminalization. So these are the policy platform that reform that need to come up later on. And second, by building that talent hub and rainbow economy. So I think we should have more LGBTQ entrepreneurs and local wealth creation by having that business or private sector to come together, building that certification program, inclusive programming. The government could really invest in the funding, how to make sure that, we have the program or the funding, we have the program like startup innovation for these marginalized entrepreneurs as well. And the third one, we should have the workforce like inclusivity and economic security by building that talent pipeline. When talking as a corporation, so we should have the policy, practices, benefit and welfare, and a culture transformation that really makes sure that yes, these people can really be themselves. They don't need to feel that they can't fit in. They are not part of the society. They are not part of the workplace as well. And the fourth, so again, I think access to financial investment and retailers would be one of that as well. Being a trans entrepreneur myself, it's quite difficult for me to get into that funding and to get into the network of growth because oftentimes when I go to startup scene, when I go to networking event, it's all I don't really see people like me on that space. And I think the connection there is very difficult because I can see that the bias are still there. When I speak up, when I want to have the presence there, it's very limited for me as well to be able to echo my voice and to echo for my community too. And the last one, yes, we talk a lot about having that legal protection. So how when it comes to that private sector. Like for example, the stock exchange of Thailand, like set 100 companies or corporation, should set the LGBTQ index in their ESG index as well, or as the SDG goal or whatever that they can call. So to make sure that they have this in place, and that the index that's in their corporation, and also the government and the private sector really invests on this, marginalized community has been on place. So I think with this all cross-sectoral collaboration and partnership would really make Thailand can go beyond the marriage equality, the Gender Recognition Act, or LGBTQ-friendly destination that we really want to see in the future. So again, my last statement would be, so World Pride, it comes not just about event celebration, but it's the catalyst of how social economic justice and transformation could be. So let me end my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Khun Nikki. Actually, you have touched upon like one of my direct experience, living in Australia, and I live in Sydney for quite sometimes, and the experience in Gay Pride in Sydney, it's totally different atmosphere, from Bangkok or the other big city that supported by big corporations, and you see like a lot of shopping mall, trying to jump into bandwagon, putting all the rainbow flag and to just promote them, that's just for commercial purposes. I'm not sure like how genuine, right, they are in terms of like promoting gender equalities in their workplace. And then like that Sydney Pride, you can feel like in the inclusiveness of the community, local communities, indigenous people, and all sort of different groups in the parade. And then that kind of low key, but you see that kind of like inclusiveness. Then I hope Thailand could be something like that as well. Not only for the big commercial and businesses. So we have a wide range of issues, but we have limited time. We have only 30 minutes left. And then if anyone wants to add any issues, after this, or probably one of the issues that actually came into my mind, we were talking about like discriminations. We were talking about the role of the United States as probably previously as one of the international leadership in human rights promotions, in LGBT rights inclusive, and then now we saw the drawback. We saw the step, backward step toward, against these kind of gender equalities in the United States. Would you think this would happen to Thailand, in the long term, in the future, if you want to predict? Because one of the key factor determining Trump's victory this time, right? A lot of analysts, right, was trying to give this kind of idea that actually too liberal, a lot of conservative people kind of feel enough, for this kind of promotions of gender equalities, and then that's why they swing back to support Trump and Republican Party this time, and that could be one of the big factors that why liberal forces in the United States kind of like lost the momentum at the current stage. Would that happen to Thailand, Ajahn Witit?
Very easy, humble answer. Never be complacent. In human rights terms, you always have to be vigilant in any society. So just the fact that you have a new law, a wonderful new law, which we all love, doesn't mean that it might not be threatened. Even in the big country that you just mentioned, of course, it was the highest court of the land that blessed the marriage of Obergefell. And then the strategy later was to have an actual federal law to consolidate it rather than just leaving it to court judgment. And now you can see the backtracking on particularly trans issues. But it'll be difficult for them to attack the federal law. Whereas, as you know, the federal court in the US now is what it is in terms of various appointees from a certain executive branch. So don't be complacent, work on the basis of checks and balances, and have as much consolidation of the norm as possible. Secondly, the situation here, particularly for trans people, was mitigated to some extent by the gender equality law of 10 years ago. It's not a perfect law at all, and as we know, there's the exception in regard to religion and national security. But in fact, if you look at how that law, which preceded the same-sex marriage law, or the equal marriage law, I mean, that gender equality law opened the door to complaints to a special committee under the Ministry of Social Development, which would accept complaints on the basis of discrimination in regard to gender or sex, and including gender expression or sexual expression, meaning how you dress. So if you look through the caseloads of that committee, a lot of the complaints to this committee asking for anti-discrimination measures were in relation to trans people in regard to how they dressed, and particularly access to ministries, access to jobs, and even universities. So make use of what we have. It's not ideal law, but it's there, and it's still there. And you can complain, and you can use administrative entry point to get some remedies. And there have been lots of cases where remedies were given according to particularly trans people. Actually, more than women in the original sense of the sex or gender of that law itself. Secondly, let me just maybe round off by saying that actually we have an issue here, a semantic issue, because we translate wrong these words into the English language and the Thai language. I mean, sex is basically ped or ped chiwa, which is biological. Gender is ped sapa or ped pawa. Now the doctors get all this wrong. I'm telling you the truth because I did a seminar at Ramatibadi Hospital not long ago. And then it's going to affect their code, a medical code, in terms of the visualization of what people are in terms of the diversity of people. So start with, please have at least 2 different words rather than mix everything up. And this gender equality law is mistranslated. It's not gender equality law, even though I say it, because that's a government translation. It's sex equality law. It uses ped. It does not use ped pawa or ped sapa. So even the law itself is wrongly translated into English. And then you get it wrongly translated into medical codes and medical jargon and so on. Which means a lot of people, including doctors in a way, don't even understand that there's a difference between the biological side and the social construct side. So I would say start there in terms of education to different groups. And then finally, we have to work with doctors. Definitely. And we have to work with business sector. Definitely. Yeah. Not just lawyers. I'm a lawyer. I don't trust law very much. Definitely doctors to enable them to help us not pathologize people. You know, World Health Organization, UN, pathologized gays till 1990. And over the past 20 years, we've been battling with the World Health Organization to depathologize trans people and more recently intersex. And they use words such as dysphoria to cover trans people, or even more recently, incongruence. And they used to slot people under this sort of mental pathology angle, whereas it's just, you know, life that people want to have help medically in terms of their sexual health. So please don't forget the doctor. And I go to quite a lot of meetings. I'm always trying to convey this. We have to bring them on board because the doctors have much more credibility than lawyers. Absolutely. And they could convey the good message of it's normal, etc. And finally, let's not generalize about religions too much. You will get good people who are quite open-minded in Islam or whatever. And many Islamic countries are not against trans people. They are against gays, but not trans. So we have to diversify analysis. It's not illegal to have to be trans in Pakistan. You know, and I don't want to mention a big country that another big country is battling with. In that country, you are forbidden from being outwardly gay, but if you convert To trans, you're protected and assisted. I don't have to mention the name. So we cannot generalize in terms of the attitude of countries or cultures in regard to every single group under this very diverse rubric of LGBTI+. And of course, some may claim that they're anti-marriage, but that's the next step. But even international law was never clear about marriage. It's now being changed because of national law. The covenant on civil rights, etc., was still using old language, man and woman. So now it's national setting, 50 countries leading the way to change the normative standards at the international level. So it's not impossible to mobilize for change. That's what I mean. And we are not fixated upon conservative elements that make use of conservative measures to constrain people. We are forward-looking in terms of cooperating with the more liberal branches of everything without classification of religion in terms of being humane and non-discriminatory. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then Khun Narila, any final remarks or final words, especially like how to compromise or make agreement or sort of like talk and make understanding among religious group that still resist or disagree with this, and how actually the state, actually ministry, work on this issue. Because you said like not everyone's disagree.
Okay. For the ministry, one of our main duty is to keep raising awareness on the rights of the LGBTIQ because it is important to make everyone in the same page and everyone understanding and aware of the importance of the rights of people and also the diversity, not only on the issue of LGBTIQ, but any kind of diversity are important, and also they need to be understand. And but we are, apart from raising awareness, we are, like for example, in terms of raising awareness, for us we also provide a training specifically for the law enforcement officer, try to avoid them to mistreat to the LGBTIQ people as well. So we are together with the UNDP. We organize the training every year, like 3-4 times a year for the law enforcement officer, to make sure that they understand about the basic knowledge on human rights and also the rights of and also the needs of LGBTIQ and make sure that they will provide appropriate treatment towards the LGBTIQ people, and also we also amend our the government code of conduct and make sure that our officer are not conduct in an inappropriate manner towards the LGBTQ people as well. So this is from our side. So we are not only raising awareness to our staff, but also to the public as well. And usually we also join hand with different stakeholders to train and also to provide understanding and training on raising awareness on the issue of LGBTIQ as well. And for the law, as I mentioned earlier, the marriage equality is a big achievement, not only for this country, but also for the region. But it is just the beginning step. So there are many more things to do, and many people are keeping eyes on what happened next after the marriage equality. But on the line, as I mentioned in my presentation, we are pushing forward the anti-discrimination bill and also gender recognition bill. But as referring to your previous question related to the position of the U.S., I think it will be effect on the consideration of the gender recognition bill as well. It may maybe make it even more challenging. So we have to hope for the good success, but of course there are many more things to do on that law as well. So this is for my side, but we will try our best to make sure that the rights of LGBTIQ will be protected.
Thank you very much, Khun Chanatip.
So perhaps I'd like to address your question regarding the gender rollback in the US and its potential impact in Thailand. I agree with Kun Narilak that um, this phenomenon emboldens people who are already anti-LGBTIQ, and it raises possibilities that there would be a surge in terms of transphobic, homophobic sentiments in the society. And just to return to your question, whether it can happen to Thailand, I agree with Professor Vitit that we shouldn't be complacent. I'd like to remind us that Thailand has had 20 constitutions in the past. We have a long history of tearing down laws that are in place already through military coups. And we also have precedents of executive orders being used to curb people's rights. Just 10 years ago, we were seeing the National Council for Peace and Order rolling out different executive orders to get rid of political and civil freedoms of people. And then during the COVID pandemic, we also saw the executive power being used extensively to curb people's ability to protest, to express themselves as well. So it's not groundless to think that this could happen in Thailand. And I think in order for us to think proactively about ways of preventing it, we need to continue working towards strengthening our democratic institutions, human rights protections that are in place in the country, and also continue to educate people about the ways that they could push back if this kind of thing happens again. Yeah.
Guy, any thoughts?
Well, I think during a time where social political challenges around the world as well, especially in Thailand. So I think backlash or those like who always disagree or dispute with us is not new. So historically, we also need to be self-resilient and be able to realign or push back on how or let's say we should reframe on what we do, like strategically. For example, if I talk on the private sector, so if some of you might have heard a lot of news about diversity, equity, inclusion, or DEI initiative or program have been also withdrawn or erased from the big major corporation, right? Like Meta, what else? Amazon or whatever. But again, we also see all the major big corporations that are still pushing back or doubling down or keeping, that diversity inclusion program because they see the value of that, and they are a true aligned of what we are doing, and fighting in terms of equality in the workplace, for example. So I think even though we are aware that this is not new and we need still to push back, and again, we also need to find a true allies or a partnership that really standing in the same value, and to work in solidarity to make sure that what we have been built is always, we need to re-strategize as well, on what we are doing, because oftentimes we really set a clear goal, but the direction of strategy we can, adapt and apply it to make sure that things are still on there. So like my business as well, I got hold from some clients as well. But there are still some clients that are still see the value, and that's how I'm still keep working on my things as well. And that's all. I think so far it's just we can't lose the hope, and we can't lose our brain, our creativity, and resilience to work on that more carefully, more harder, and more let's say collectively with some partners and those who see the same thing together. So this is my idea.
Thank you very much. So now I open the floor for questions of 15 minutes. Yes, it's a gentleman behind. Can you introduce yourself and questions?
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Jan Asmussen. I'm with the German Center of Excellence at the Thammasat University, and I'm professor of political science at the Kiel University in Germany as well. I have a very specific question because Madam Director mentioned that there's a lack of statistics on the military, which was not a surprise to me because I have been teaching 3 years at the Polish Naval Academy in Gdynia. And Poland is probably the counterexample to Thailand when it comes to tolerance. I wonder, how is it actually within the armed services of Thailand? Even in Germany, people would rather not tell what is their orientation because that's not good for their career. In Poland, I'm not aware of a single person who has ever come out. So the question is this an issue, and is this the explanation why you don't have statistics, that people who are in the armed services of Thailand would simply not give this information? Thank you.
Okay, let me clarify this question. One of the challenges that I mentioned in my presentation is that we don't have statistics of LGBTIQ, but only statistic that we have is the statistic of military conscription. So we have the statistics of people who gone for military conscription and the trans who gone for military conscription, but the overall picture of LGBTIQ we don't have. So yeah, that's the point. So because of the nature of LGBTIQ, not everyone are willing to express themselves. So that is why we cannot have the official statistic of LGBTIQ. But for military, we have. Okay.
May I just ask? So it's not a problem at all.
It's a problem for us when we propose for the policy and law related to the budget. It is the problem because only the statistic we have is the statistics of men who gone military conscription and the trans who gone for military conscription, but not overall picture.
So what about the officers?
The officer, we never have that kind of data because when in my office, we are the first government agency that announce ourselves as LGBTI friendly government organization, and when we ask our colleague to raise the hand if you are LGBTIQ, my boss used to ask, and then not everyone raising the hands, because not everyone are there to express themselves, so it is very difficult.
Any other?
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Steph Galera. I am currently the head of Southeast Asia for Open for Business. You've seen some of the numbers that we've produced earlier, where we're saying that LGBTQ plus inclusion is not only the right thing to do, but that it is a profitable thing to do. So given that, are there any plans to quantify the influence of marriage equality in Thailand in terms of the economy, the boost in the economy that we're seeing, and positioning Thailand as a role model for other countries to also follow?
Perhaps Kuniki is the right person to answer this.
Well, I'm not from the government sector, but yeah, as you can see, what I recommend is that, yes, whatever initiative or investments that the government also need to invest, like for example, like World Prize as a case study, even the marriage equality bill that people always ask me, 1 month passed for the marriage equality. So do you see something change? Do you see something big from that change? I say, how can I know? Because we don't have that data-driven, answer for that. So I think what we recommend, yes, it is definitely a need to do that data, collection sets through different, methodologies and source of data as well. And second, yes, once we really be able to quantify, as I mentioned, how many people are there, what they are doing, and what are their condition of living, what are the challenges that we know from this community. So the data-driven policy recommendation should be, compiled in order to make sure that this is, the social impact and community first approach and recommendation to the government. And I think, yes, we should open, because I don't think everyone know everything. So we should open with a partnership, like with open for business, for example, because you have that expertise on this one. So I think there should be some way of locally and internationally collaboration, like strategic partnership, in order to make sure that what we are doing now, it's not just about setting example for this region, but also to be part of that, strategic global movement on the LGBTQ inclusion as well. So for me, I really support and agree to have that data collection and investments on that big data. And we have big data units in Thailand as well. So I actually already mentioned about that when I present this, fighting to the government agencies. So, but again, it depends on their consideration and budget as well. Yes, I also write on that proposal.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hello, can everyone can hear me now? Hello, my name is Blue. My pronunciation they might hear him. I'm a project officer from ASEAN Surgical Cause. We're working on LGBTQ rights in across Southeast Asia. My question goes to Kun Nikki. So finally to meet you here again. Kun Nikki, thank you for sharing your presentation about your initiative for your business, working with business to promote inclusivity. My question that I want to ask you is how to work with the business, but ensure that it wouldn't end up rainbow watching as well.
Good. Very good questions. Thank you very much. I think this is our like struggle as well, right? As a Pride community, and also as a people working in the business sector on how to get them work together and get a win-win situation for them. So when I talk with this, I also put in there on the slide as well. So, we also need to set up, for example, the pipeline of how we can make the ethical partnership. I think this initiative, like ethical partnership policy, would be one of the strategic initiative that I recommend, not only for World Pride, but I mean, to bid for the host of World Pride in 2030, Thailand need to really do a big and massive preparation from now on to that, in the next 6 years to host that one. So what does it mean? It means that private sector, public sector, or private communities must work together to initiate or to craft that ethical principle of partnership working together. So what you are missing, what you look for the company to support the community, not only by giving the money during Pride Month, like I mentioned earlier, right? So what are a long-term and sustainable vision and initiative and programming that you could do? And oftentimes, I think when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we talk only about, make more anti-bias or inclusive hiring for LGBTQ people. But we also need to acknowledge that, well, again, we shouldn't fall into the trap of tokenism of having that gender diversity in your companies without considering the competencies that really, a mismatch of the job opportunities as well. So come back, I think, first of all, three sectors like private, public, and private must come work together, create that ethical principle of partnership working together from now on to prepare your sector to move forward to create a greater, equality and justice back to the community. And second, I think this is a very great timing because we see a lot of backlash, right, happening locally and globally as well. So it's really to to see who are your authentic or true allies working alongside with you as a community. So we call for from a performative allyship to be a transformative partnership by working and fighting together with us. So I think it's a way, it's a good timing now, and it's a way we can reframe up what we do and see Thailand opportunity in this very, I don't want to say dark age, but it's a very challenging time. We should be, for example, Thailand could be a shelter for LGBTQ from the US, for example, to move here as a digital nomad. Some people will also stay here with a digital nomad visa, so we can expand that market of that LGBTQ people who are facing a big challenge living in their country to come here. So it's another way, that we can work in terms of a systemic level to, let's say, if it work on the corporate, so we call operational level. So it requires a lot of multi-dimensional approach and cross-sectoral approach to work on that rainbow watching, I would say.
Thank you so much.
Okay, last questions. If we have time, that one first.
Hello. I have a question, but also I just like to add on the business sector. Hello, I'm Jace. I work with community business, and that's precisely what we do. I'm working with companies to be more inclusive. So just on the rainbow washing part, it would be important to look at business processes to integrate policies, benefits, and programs that are inclusive to not only the LGBT community but other underrepresented minorities. That will make sure that rainbow washing doesn't happen just on product diversity and services. And happy to connect with you later on as well. My question is, I'm sorry, we walked in a little bit late. I just want to confirm if equal marriage, are there already provisions for two foreigners to get married here at the moment, or are we still waiting for that?
I have instructions for you here. You can
thank
take
you.
a photocopy.
Thank you. We'll take it later.
This is from the district officials. Lawful marriage between Thai and foreigner or foreigner couples. One, original ID card for Thai, but you don't want the Thai qualifications. In the case of foreigner, certificate issued by the embassy or consulate in Thailand of the foreigner with the following details. And then second one, a copy of your passport issued by the embassy or consulate together with Thai translations of your passport, legalized by Department of Consular Affairs. And then two witnesses, could be your family members, father, mother, relatives, siblings, and a Thai interpreter.
Thank you.
So there's a bit of cost involved, sorry.
Not a question, but also a follow-up on rainbow washing. For us, it's really around acknowledging that we're looking at positive intent. So there are so many organizations just simply don't know where to start. So it now creates a venue for us to start that dialogue and have that conversation to create meaningful change in their organizations. But it starts with the recognition that everybody doesn't know everything. Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Hello, my name is Hafan. I'm a student at Chula Master of Art and Cultural Management, and I'm also an activist working in Vietnam right now, and also working for same-sex marriage legalization in Vietnam. Actually, my interest is more about cultural heritage, since I'm currently studying in Chula right now for that. I really appreciate Piniki for mentioning the implementation of queer local heritage, queer local culture that exists in Thailand. And during my time of study, I learned that in Thailand, many communities have that queer cultural practices, even religious one. And I kind of want to know, has there been any initiative to document all of the queer cultural heritage here in Thailand, and have there been any initiative in promoting it or using it as an advantage, as a like a stepping stone to promote equality for the communities here in Thailand, because that is also something that I want to do for my community in Vietnam as well.
Again, I'm not talking on behalf of the government sector, but I'm talking on behalf of the consultant for the government project on World Pride. So this is one of the initiatives we also recommend the government to do so by investing on, let's say, archive and digitize, and also make this, queer culture, let's say, local LGBTQ or queer cultural heritage to become more, let's say, more documentized and also systemized in terms of way. So that's why we have proposed to set up the National Pride Heritage Center. This is the idea where when we conduct the group interview with the local LGBTQ communities, they really want to have the gender equality centers across the country. Because for now, Pride organizers have hosted, I think, around almost 35 Pride events across the country already during the past year. And I think having an event is not enough to make sure that the legacy and the heritage of this Pride culture would be in the long term, right? Because again, oftentimes as part of a co-founder of Trans Pride Thailand as well, so we struggle on how to sustain our financial model of funding to host the Pride like in every year. So having that center, a heritage center, would become a center where we have the school of thought about how we can really understand and find out the uniqueness of the indigenous identity of the people locally and regionally. And second, it is a platform or the space for LGBTQ, either youth, senior, activists, or LGBTQ from different sector like Pride, public, private, to come on work on that, either World Pride or either Pride event, whatever initiative you want to, either art, film, museum, for example, right? So there are a lot of ways to do so, but again, there are a lot of ideas, but we need, first of all, the investment, either from public or private sector. I don't know. I recommend both. Second, we need the implementator unit, which can be, can be private sector or public and private sector who see things. And then after that, we can leverage on that, culturally, socially, and economically later on. So this is the initiative plan I proposed. I hope the government people who are sitting here will see this initiative and really help move forward on their capacities on that front.
If I may add to that, we were at an LGBTQ plus show, movie night yesterday. There's an organization called Document Our History Now that actually documents different experiences of queer communities even outside of Bangkok. So recommend for you to check that out.
Okay, so perhaps our time's running out. So, like a lot of bunch of issues, it's like an open Pandora box somehow, but both the opportunities, challenges that we found, from the discussions here that, same-sex marriage bills, provides to Thailand, and probably, challenges in discriminations, and some hurdle in legal matters, opportunities, could be expanding the economy, it could act as like Thailand's soft power as well. I think the government used these words a lot, right? Soft power, and I think this is like the only one that I see that aligned with the meaning, the original meaning of soft power that we are working on, right? I mean, as a political scientist, right? I mean, probably this is like something that Thailand can leverage and play international roles, further, and the government should focus on this expanding the rights of LGBT groups. So, and of course, it's a good opportunity for Thai society to learn and to understand each other and create a more ultimately a fair societies. Starting from this bill, of course, it might not be happily ever after, very shortly, but we work toward that, and then that's probably the spirit of this fairness that we should continue. And thank you very much for coming here, all the way to political science department, and thank you our sponsor FNS, and please give a big applause to our speakers, thank you very much. And please follow ISIS Thailand social medias and the next announcements for the next event. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Happy Valentine's.